hauled us down here. Nobody's talking at our house.
This is the county courthouse.
Is it going to be written down that I'm lady of the house, like you said? You know, I still got a lot of friends in the Merchant Marine, and if they get wind of this, why, I'll be the laughing stock of every quarter deck from here to Singapore.
It'll be written down, Mr. O'Casey, but I assure you that no one will see it except a few stuffed shirt lawyers like myself.
Well, it's okay, then.
Judge Leland, will Uncle Charlie actually be recorded as the lady of the house?
Well, it's what we call a legal fiction. Something which is recognized as a fact, but which is not, in fact, a fact for legal purposes.
Ain't it amazing how an education can get in the way of somebody saying something other people can understand?
You will actually be a part of the family, which means that what they decide for you, you must do. If Mr. O'Casey thinks that you should be punished in some way, as a mother might punish you, you must obey. If Mr. Douglas gives you less allowance than the other boys, as a father might do because you are the younger, you must accept this. You'll find, Ernie, that the other boys and you will not always agree. Living in a new home is not one long, perpetual Christmas.
You just saw a little video clip on fictions of law. This is a second part of a basic educational series. You recently saw one called Maritime Law. What is maritime law? And that was portrayed or described in an episode of Paladin in black and white. And he presents it pretty much black and white. So, interesting, very. Fictions of law. Okay, this is also in black and white. What is a fiction of law? As I've said in the past and in the last episode, that if I have any spiritual gifts, it is, I believe, the gift of education. So I'm having a blast bringing out some things that have been hidden from view on purpose. And fictions and maritime law, the gold French flag, we could go on and on and on, but I'm going to try to stay focused and explain what fictions of law are. Okay. Back in, oh, by the way, today is December 7th. This is the 1 year anniversary of the beginning of the arbitration process, not the actual arbitration itself, but what led up to the arbitration, which is now available to every American out there. Okay? And you probably want to take advantage of it because Congress is just about to close the door on any future arbitrations of civil rights violations such as this. There's a bill in Congress, passed the House, it's in the Senate, had 2 readings, it's gone to the Judiciary Committee, it comes back, it's voted on, and if the president signs it, or he doesn't sign it, and they override his veto, or you know, whatever shenanigans they pull, it could be over. Now, back in 2015, July 14th, in West Virginia, in actions that led up to the federal level. But at the state level, we filed, well, first we petitioned for redress of grievances, and then we filed in court. When the court and when the defendants addressed us, they addressed us as fictions. And so we produced a document which was a proper correction of the defendant's response, where they refer to us as fictions, creations, not real people, not real men. Okay, there were 3 men, and they thought we were the Three Stooges. And whenever they make a statement, if you do not refute it, then you're admitting to it. So you have to properly address their responses if they're incorrect. So let's look at some parts of this document. I'm not going to show you the whole document. I'm going to show you the parts. It's going to give you an understanding of a very important concept of law, and it's also going to give you a good understanding of what we did, why we did it, how we did it, who we did it for, and it's impressive. It's awesome. I mean, we through divine providence, in my estimation, we navigated through a minefield where a lot of people have not survived. And that's sad, because we have a tyrannical government that's capable of just about anything. So let's look at this document. Let's look at page 1 first. Top of the page, it says plaintiffs. Now I show myself here. The Honorable Philip Hudock, proceeding in propria persona sui juris, a real man with hands and legs. By the way, that's a term that the government uses for real people, ones with hands and legs, not fictions, okay? So it's not something we invented. It's using their language, because you've got to understand your enemy, okay? Quitam pro domino rege quam pro se ipso in hoc parte sequitur. Okay, and that's my old address. They changed my address because of 911. So, and that was a real butchering of Latin, but you know, hey. Now, who are the defendants? Well, I list 2 here. Governor Tomlin, Earl Ray Tomlin, aka Earl Ray Tomlin, all caps. Now, the Earl Ray Tomlin, upper and lower, is the man. The Earl Ray Tomlin, all caps, is the corporation. As a matter of fact, we found out that Earl Ray Tomlin had 3 corporations for the governor's office, okay? And one of them was classified as, let's see, what was it classified as? A entertainment, an entertainment corporation. The governor's office, entertainment. Okay, you figure that one out. The other person here is Patrick Morrissey. Again, we see upper and lower, and we see all caps. We see the fiction, the corporate fiction, because they do incorporate. And notice that it says foreign agent, purported attorney general. We said the same thing about the governor. Okay. So you'll notice that my fingerprints are on here. That's me, a real person, because guess what? Fictions can't produce fingerprints. Page 2. The case in the West Virginia Supreme Court was 150491. And by the way, we took that all the way up to the Supreme Court. We amended the case to include the justices as defendants themselves. 4 of these 5 justices later became impeached, but they weren't impeached because of what we did. They were impeached for stealing and some other things, but we had the real goods on the entire crap game. And let me tell you, when government realizes a person or a department realizes you're going after them, they circle the wagons and they protect their crap game, okay? They may compete against each other, but they're not going to compete against you. They're just going to eliminate you, however, whether it's legally or physically, whatever. Let me read from page 2, bottom of the page here. I, Philip Hudock, the signatory and plaintiff, do by these presents, under full liability and complete transparency, aver, attest, affirm, declare, and testify to the accuracy and truthfulness of the following various letter combinations, to wit. The defendants claim it is in the creature of the mind, fiction of law, and corporate in the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. Yet the original complaint and demand was filed in person in and at a structure that appeared to be real, unlike what their purported response is magically placed into. I do not possess these same magical skills, nor would I want to. They refer to us as fictions. And we said, no. You did some magic here. We're not fictions. I shall now set forth in a proper correction of the aforementioned response, which is not an answer as the average person would, but an attempt to pervert justice simply because the defendants and their conspirators believe they are above the rule of law. And truly, they do believe they're above the rule of law. The defendants have already been notified of the proper names, capacity, standings, jurisdiction, and venue of the plaintiffs. Yet the defendants feel they can do whatever they please. It is the defendants that have failed to provide proper and lawful evidence of who the defendants are, which is at the center of the emergency affirmed complaint and demand. Anybody can claim anything, but at some point must realize the defendants may be called out publicly, as I do now. The proper standing, capacity, jurisdiction, and venue of the plaintiffs are as follows, to wit. And there's the plaintiff, okay? Philip Hudak, upper and lower. And this was filed as a qui tam. What this Latin is saying is that I'm filing this on behalf of all men, and I'm filing it on behalf of men, not fictions, creations of God. Okay? Let's get down to the bottom of page 3. The defendants have purposely attempted to exclude the unknowns and purported governor, and so they are properly inserted above. As any rational person knows, spelling, capitalization, and punctuation mean everything in law. By the way, it means everything in the Bible too, you know. The Bible says it's not to be changed one jot or one tittle. They are also attempting to change the plaintiffs to a petitioner, which may be proper if the plaintiffs were not utilizing the blended jurisdictions which operate in the purported state of West Virginia courts. Okay, they also blend jurisdictions. There's commercial, there's civil, ecclesiastical. Those are jurisdictions, and they're not supposed to do that. You should just be in one jurisdiction, okay? But they morph, okay? Just like they wanted us to morph into a fictional creation. The defendants, purporting themselves to be lawful government and expressing by their own actions and purported answer that they are above the law, have called into question the mental ability to hold any purported constitutional office. We're saying, you don't belong there. How can we rely on their ability to be competent purported public servants? The purported federal courts refer to the corpus juris secundum, have stated that incompetence and minors are wards of the court. Incompetence and minors are wards of the court. How do you become incompetent? Well, there's two ways. You get an attorney. If you get an attorney, you're saying, I'm incompetent and I need help, and so I'm incompetent, and my attorney isn't incompetent, although he is actually an officer of the court, so we got a problem there, you know. And of course, if you're a child, you're considered to be incompetent, so you know you have. That's why children have parents. Okay. Another way to be incompetent is you go into court and you represent yourself. A representation is something less than what it is representing. So you go in as something less than you, which is a person, so you go in as a fiction. So you're saying you're not smart enough, but you'll let this imaginary creation of the state called a fiction to defend yourself. Defend. I mean, it's crazy. I know. I have a hard time wrapping my mind around this. But if they say you are representing yourself, which is what they kept saying we were representing ourselves, and no, we are ourselves. Why would I need someone to represent myself when I am myself? Okay. Further, it appears there is now a serious conflict of interest. The corporations and real men with hands and legs being sued are now finding those from within the same to represent them. Okay, when we went to the governor with this suit, the governor didn't defend himself. He got an attorney. The attorney general got an attorney. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court justices got attorneys. Recently, and maybe I'll show you that document, they actually got attorneys. These are the Supreme Court justices, so therefore they were saying that they were incompetent. Here we go again, folks. It's a rabbit hole, it's bizarro world, and we called them out. Defendants are attempting to assert only purported official capacities, even though they are brought in under purported official capacities, personal capacity and corporate capacity, all by counsel, obviously, as they are incompetent to answer, let alone hold any office or position of trust. You gotta love it. In the purported statement of facts, the defendants say that the plaintiffs assert unsubstantiated facts and allegations. We appreciate their confirmation of the facts. And because they are agreed to as facts, they are, of course, through common sense, tacit consent and agreement, then verify the allegations as fact as well. Okay. Now we're going to get into what we presented in this document called Proper Correction of Defendant's Response. We get into some dictionary definitions of fictions. Okay, we're trying to educate these poor, elected, incompetent officials who are the governor and the attorney general and the Supreme Court justices and the Senate clerk. Page 4, bottom of the page. Black's Law Dictionary, 5th edition, states, fiction of law, an assumption or supposition of law that something which is or may be false is true. Okay, so you're going to say something that is false or may be false is true. And concludes with a rule of law which assumes as true and will not allow to be disproved something which is false, but not impossible. So you cannot disprove that the false thing which you say is true is actually false. So they say by definition you can't disprove that it's not true. It is confusing. We certainly have a problem, don't we? Check the purported public record as it was incorporated within the original affirmed complaint and demand. The kidnappers are, by their own definition, and we actually had a situation of kidnapping that we were addressing. See Title 5 USC 331, 332, 333, backed up by Title 22 CFR Foreign Relations 9.92.12 to 92.31 and Title 8 USC Section 1481. And here's what it says. The public official relinquishes his national citizenship and are thus foreign agents as stipulated under Title 22 USC Chapter 11 Section 611 loss of national citizenship. Okay. International Organization Immunities Act of 12/9/1945. Therefore, foreign agents. Did you get that? Our government is populated with foreign agents. That's the law. Oh my. Our intent is not to wreck the system. And that's an important point, okay? Treaty of Peace 2020, which became Bill of Peace 2020, because we're going for a bill in Congress on the private side for settlement, okay, of an order, is not an intent to wreck the system. It's putting government on notice, hey, the gig's up. We know your game. We know what you're doing. There are 1,700 plus whistleblowers that I spread out on this dining room table. Okay? We're telling the government, hey, we're not trying to wreck the system, but your contract is void. We have another contract. Why should we support your habit? Your unlawful actions. Hello? Where am I? It is not our intent to wreck the system, but to bring it back into a condition of health, profiting all people. Not persons. Persons are corporations. Did you know that? Corporations have personhood. But people, they want us to be fictions. But they've made corporations, giving them personhood. Go figure. It would do everyone, both the public and purported public servants, well to contemplate the transformation of meaning and original intentions behind the terms fiction and fiction of law. Early law dictionaries, such as the 1708 Cowell Law Dictionary, does not even mention fiction or fiction of law. The 1740 Hodges Student's Law Dictionary has fiction of law and defines it only as an invented form of conveyance for the docking of an estate. Where'd fiction come from? I'm going to tell you. Fiction came from a situation where someone had an estate, they passed away, so they create a fake person, a fiction, a creation of the mind, and that fiction stands in the place of that person to effectuate the transfer of the estate. Okay, so that was what it was designed. That's how it came into being, according to Hodges' Law Dictionary. That it was invented, an invented form of conveyance for the docking of an estate. Okay, page 5. Let's look at the 1810 Tomlin's Law Dictionary. Warns that fiction of law is allowed of in several cases, but it must be framed according to the rules of law, not what is imaginable in the conception of man. And there ought to be equity and possibility in every legal fiction. Okay, that's 1810. So here they're saying there must be equity. Equity means there must be justice, okay? Things have to be done proper here. And you're not supposed to just say, I wonder what I imagine I could use a fiction for. Let's see. No. You see, that's the problem with government. Government is like fire, according to George Washington. It's a dangerous it's a dangerous servant that can actually be a master. I'm paraphrasing, okay? So you have to keep it under control. Government will not stay within its bounds. It has to be contained. It's kind of like a tiger in Barnum Bailey Circus. And we're going to get to circuses, okay? Now let's go to 1843, Bouvier's Volume 1A Law Dictionary, in where it states it establishes as true something which is false. Okay. This is what I highlighted out of Bouvier's dictionary. It differs from presumption. Now they're talking about a fiction of law because it establishes as true something which is false, whereas presumption supplies the proof of something true. Okay? So a fiction of law establishes truth from falsehood. A presumption actually establishes proof of something that's true. We go on. Fiction is the resource of weakness. You're not doing this out of a position of strength. This is, it's kind of like really sad you even have to do this. Which, in order to obtain its object, assumes as a fact what is known to be contrary to truth. Fictions, oh, this is precious. Fictions of law owe their origin to the legislative usurpations of the bench. Do we see that over and over? Making law from the bench, legislating from the bench. So they're saying fictions of law didn't come from the law-making body. They came from the law-interpreting body called the judiciary. And here's another piece from 1843, Bouvier. That the heir, executor, and administrator stand by representation in the place of the deceased are all fictions of law. That the heir, executor, and administrator stand by representation. There's that word again. See, they want you to represent yourself because now you become a fiction. Okay, words in law have their meaning and what you think their meaning is. So you didn't think representation probably meant that you were an imbecile, and so therefore you were creating something that doesn't even exist. Wow, that's crazy. Just like understanding. When they say, do you understand? They don't mean, do you comprehend? They mean, do you accept that you are down here and we are up here? And that's why they sit up on the stage and you sit down here, because they're superior to you. You're just a subject. Well, you're not even a subject. You're a fiction. Okay? Let me continue. Okay? This is the last, it's not the last page, but it's the last part of Proper Correction of Defendant's Response, July 14, 2015, that I'm going to share with you. I had a great time writing this. In Lewis Carroll's 1871 book, Through the Looking Glass, otherwise known as Alice in Wonderland, Alice is amazed to find a world where what is isn't and what isn't is. The corporate fiction world that we now live in has taken fiction of law and what is isn't and what isn't is to levels way beyond the restricted framing and equity warned of and practiced in the past. Whereas fiction of law was used for simple conveyance of property of the deceased, we have shown by clear and convincing evidence in our filings that we are simply considered property, creatures of the mind, but we are real men with hands and legs. Congress has relinquished every public office over to the UN. Now all government bodies, from local governments to the presidency, fall under UN jurisdiction. When Obama took the chairmanship of the UN Security Council, it was more than symbolism of UN usurpation. It would arguably be a violation of Section 9 of the Constitution of the United States of America, 1819, which states, quote, "No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without consent of the Congress, except of any president, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state." This purported court has the duty and responsibility to its creators to uphold the rule of law and protect all real men with hands and legs from intrusions and acts of war by these purported public officials and purported public servants who are in fact foreign agents and or esquires. Attorneys sometimes go by esquire. That was one of the original, I think it was the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which was actually ratified by all the states, but then they pulled a little fiction and changed the 13th Amendment. That's another story. Anyway, sadly, Congress gave the UN the right to dictate what laws will be international and give them the right to tax the states. Their enforcers are therefore foreign agents. Ignorance of these laws, controlling everyone, is no excuse. It is only reality as claimed by the defendants in their imaginary land of fictions that they will not allow to be disproved. Something which is false. Okay. Well, some of you already knew this, but what I want to show you now is in our filings, because it is truly a circus. It's bizarre world. We are in la la land as far as what the government is actually doing and what they actually are, who they are. Okay, so in our filings we used an appropriate stamp to show our disdain and dislike and distrust and everything that's by circus stamps. Okay, so you see here on the 4th day of September, I signed, thumbprinted with a Barnum and Bailey circus stamp, and Gene Stonecker did the exact same thing. Gene Stonecker. Actually, Gene Stonecker, who was one of the original complainants, okay, he was a postmaster, so he knows all about postal regulations. As a matter of fact, we actually caught the Supreme Court violating postal regulations, but it was his idea. When the Supreme Court said that even though we filed an amended case naming them as defendants, that it mysteriously had actually, the case had been dismissed 10 days earlier. Now get that. We filed an amendment into a case that they later told us didn't exist anymore because it was dismissed. These people work in magic, okay? That's why we had to go all the way up the food chain. You're not going to get any justice in the courts, as I explained in maritime law. Okay, so, and here's one of here's an image from Gene's response to the Supreme Court of Appeals, in which he tells them, wait a minute, we're not accepting that you dismissed the case. We never accepted it, okay? As a matter of fact, the Elkins Intermountain published an article saying that that case was still active, which I'll show you now. And guess what? They didn't respond. If it was true, why wasn't I notified it was dismissed? How could we file into a case that had been dismissed? So Gene did some real nice artwork here with some circus stamps. I think that covers the situation of fictions. I thank you for tuning in, watching this, and the game's not over. You remember, you have the choice. Are you going to play their game? Are you going to be a fiction? Are you going to be a subject? Are you going to do what they tell you, when they tell you, how they tell you, and they'll tell you what happens if you don't do everything they say, what will happen to you. So, are you a real man with hands and legs, or are you a subject? Are you a creation of God, or are you a creation of the state? It's going to get crazier and crazier. Personally, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And I'm going to be a whistleblower. So, hoodop.info, go there, check it out. I'm going to play the My Three Sons fiction clip again. God bless. Catch y'all later. Bye.
Judge Leland, will Uncle Charlie actually be recorded as the lady of the house?
Well, it's what we call a legal fiction. Something which is recognized as a fact, but which is not, in fact, a fact for legal purposes.
Ain't it amazing how an education can get in the way of somebody saying something other people can understand?